Welcome to the Fossil Fundamentals podcast brought to you by fossilsuk.com. I'm Byron, and in this show, we sit down with fossil hunters, collectors, and experts to uncover the stories behind the fossils. fossilsuk.com. I'm Byron, and in this show, we sit down with fossil hunters, collectors, and experts to uncover the stories behind the fossils. Fossils aren't just stones, they're moments frozen in time, and the people who find them often have incredible stories to tell. And today is someone who has turned those stories into a full-on experience. From the Jurassic Coast to fossil festivals across the UK, he's part scientist, part entertainer, part educator, and a great friend of the show. He is Steve Cousins. He is the Rock Showman. Welcome to the podcast, Steve.
Byron, pleasure to be here. Thanks for the introduction. Let's talk about rocks.
I can't believe I actually wrote that. It's so cheesy, but it says everything on the tin, really. Really. But no, thanks for coming on the show. And I kind of thought it would be kind of interesting for people to get to know collectors and fossil hunters that they probably pass on the beach, see at fossil shows, and obviously I know an awful lot of people in that world, and kind of interesting to meet them, get to know them, have a conversation with them, see what happens if people are interested in that kind of thing. But we'll soon see, won't we? So first of all, how did you get into fossils, and what's your first ever fossil find?
Great. Well, thanks for having me here with you, Byron. Great to be here sharing this with you. I've been into fossils for a long time. I think, like a lot of people who end up this way, it starts young. And for me, I think it goes back to being with the Scouts, or maybe it was my primary school, but we went to an actual fossil quarry, which is about 45 minutes from where I lived, which is just down the road in Australia. And it was a very famous quarry called the Mulbring Quarry, and had essentially every rock you picked up had beautiful, perfect fossils in it. So from then on, I was
what kind of fossils would you find there, Steve?
Let's get into the rocks straight away.
Let's get into it straight away. In there,
straight into the fossils. Well, it's a Permian site in Australia. So that's Coalfield in Australia.
So Permian's about 227 million years old, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere between 200 and 200. Sorry, you're right. 250 and around about 295 million years old. And it's a siltstone, creamy coloured rock, and every rock in that entire quarry was full of fossils. They were mostly fossils of crinoids and spirifers, so sea creatures, shellfish, things that were living in the bottoms of the oceans.
Obviously we've got to try and get over what these things are. So crinoids were like a sea lily type creature that lived at the bottom of the sea, which was actually a type of animal rather than actually a fossil plant. It was actually a type of animal very closely related to the starfish and sea urchins that you see in the modern oceans. Whereas sporifera were effectively shellfish, a bit like not a mussel, because mussel's slightly different, but effectively like a shellfish of some description, like a cockle shell, I guess is the easiest analogy. So what else could you find?
Well, I was told at one point when I went back to that same place at my university days a few years later, that you could find trilobites there, but they was rare as hen's teeth, and I never did find a trilobite.
There was probably a reason for that, because trilobites were on the way out. They were dying off. They were down to like only a couple of species at that point, so they were dying out. So that's why, and they were very small as well at that point.
Yeah. So it was a really rich assemblage of the fauna of the bottom of the sea, not too dissimilar to a lot of the Permian rocks fossils that are found in the UK at the time as well. So interestingly, I've seen that as I've progressed throughout my...
What was the feeling like for finding your first fossil, though? Because that's what everybody wants to know. They probably haven't had that experience, have they? We've had that experience many, many times, finding fossils on the beaches in around the Yorkshire area. But what was it like for you for that first fossil?
I think, given that it was such a easy place to find fossils, it was rewarding, but also potentially setting the standard a little bit too high, or the expectations a little bit too high. I remember having this piece of treasure, and this piece of treasure that I'd found was quite cool, and I've always remembered that.
Yeah, I think it's the wondrous nature of the fact that you're holding something that's millions and millions of years old. That's the that's the wondrous nature of fossil hunting, I think.
Something that's older than dinosaurs, that was also really true there, that it blew my mind as to how old this would be. And that it was also so easy to find in many ways. I was privileged, as many of us are, as you are, living in Whitby, that where I grew up, there were fossils everywhere. And there were mines that were pumping out rocks that were full of fossils everywhere. And that was just the waste material. We wanted the coal, not the fossils.
Yeah. And was it mainly ocean dwelling creatures you find? Did you not find any plant material around that area? Or
no? This is all.
I know several locations in Australia that had Permian plant material and things like that.
Sorry, I took the question wrong. You're exactly right. In my part of Australia, it's Permo-Triassic, full of plant, both terrestrial and marine fossils. So this specific quarry was purely about the Mulberry siltstone.
So it might have been some kind of, not knowing the particular location itself, but it might have been actually some kind of reef deposit that at the time where all these things were living, whereas a short distance away in Australian terms, very short distance away, there would have been land plants and things like that as well. Hence why they were probably digging the coal up at the time.
Or almost certainly. This quarry was quite a fair way away from the coal itself. Stratigraphically, I'm not actually sure where it sits within it. But I think the key point you've pulled out there is reef. This was mostly a bryozoan community. So this was probably a bryozoan reef.
Yeah. Which is similar to, I believe there's a very similar location up near Sunderland as well, I think, which is a very similar age, which is probably very similar.
Yep. That's the analog here in the Permian of northeast England, where I now live.
So, have you got any other stories about finding fossils? Or
from an early age, I would find lots of black shale, terrestrial shale, Glossopteris and Gangomopteris.
Yep.
These are, as I know you have famously called them, the rocks that prove a continental drift.
Yeah. Well, go on. Tell everybody about it.
I'll tell them your story, shall I?
Yeah, that'll be great.
So Glossopteris and Gangomopteris are the genus of plants that grew in the great southern supercontinent Gondwana, and we find them today as fossils that come from India, South America, Australia, Antarctica, and Africa. Glossopteris, I believe, is named after the type location in India, which, of course, for most of its life was attached next to Australia as part of this supercontinent. And we know by pulling all of these continents back together in terms of the shape, there's lots of science that goes into it as to how they pull back together. Yeah. But because we find these fossils in very distant parts of the world and only in these particular land masses today, there is evidence that these continents were once linked in the past when these were all growing on land. Great. So these are really common fossil around my part of the eastern seaboard of the Sydney Basin in New South Wales.
No, I always find it fascinating, particularly that story is just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing, that you find the same fossils in all those different continents that basically prove that they were once all connected together and that dinosaurs were walking between those continents at one point as well. I mean, it's incredible, a great story.
Dinosaurs, fish, ammonites, trilobites, all of these great genera, all of these great types of creatures from the past.
Through continental drift, they've slowly drifted apart, and they're now in the position they're in today. Incredible. Incredible. So they call you the Rock Showman. Why is that? Where did that come from? Tell us all about it.
Right. Well, I mean, if it's not completely obvious as to how a showman who runs a circus, who is also a geologist, would call themselves the Rock Showman, then I should probably explain, because it is a fairly continental
not
drift.
An awful lot of people would know, apart from myself and a few others, would know that you have been running circuses for a very long time.
Yes, and that's where the name does come from. So I'll elaborate. I've been an entertainer for just over 25 years. I've had a career in entertainment, a street theatre, circus, a variety. My day job certainly for my last 15 years, has been running a circus company. That includes putting up a big top and putting on shows to people, or creating events in cities and small places across the UK and across the world, indeed. So I'm a showman by trade, but I trained as a geologist before that, and this showman thing became started as a bit of a sideline, or not really a sideline, as an adventure when I was in my 20s, and it kept becoming an adventure all the way through to where I am now. But more recently, I have fused my two passions together. So the passion of geology, which I've always had as a trained geologist, I qualified in late 90s at the University of Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia, not to be confused with the other one. I combined the geology and the circus to be an entertainer who teaches people about the earth by using rocks, minerals, fossils, and stories as a way in.
Yes, and that's the key, isn't it? It's all about the science education and getting the information over to the people about the rocks, but in an entertaining fashion, and getting the education over to many people.
Yeah, well, that's what I aim to do, and I do it because I love it, and I think that there is a genuine fascination by most people. I think most people go through at some point in their life having a fundamental feeling of awe with nature at some point. Now, whether that's I love lions, I love elephants, I love stars, I love rocks, crystals, fossils, minerals. I think most people have that. So it's there within us all. And my lucky job is to be able to help bring that out from people. And that's not just children. It's not people who are uncovering it for the first time, but it's people who maybe have had that there in their past, but it's kind of, they've moved on to the sensible life and family and everything that they've then gone on to be focused on. But I can bring that back in some way for them and re-spark that interest for those people as well as the newbies.
I think the fascination for me is particularly when I'm talking to children and schools and doing the fossil walks that we do. It's the fascination of them discovering it for the first time, and that for me has been the driver behind the fossil walks that we do. Because ultimately, it's getting them out of the comfort zone, isn't it? It's getting like this is getting me out of my comfort zone by doing this. It's getting people out of the comfort zone, away from the technology, even though we're using technology right this minute. Getting people out of the comfort zone from the technology, but actually getting them out into the nature, into the outside world to discover things for themselves. And that kind of first time that they find that one fossil and the wonderness that they see on the faces will be with them forever. It might inspire them in some way, and that's what we're doing, isn't it? By trying to do that science education, is to try and inspire the next generation to become the next scientist or doctor or nurse or teacher or geologist or YouTuber or whatever. It's trying to inspire them to look at not just videos but actually experience it for themselves.
I think the experience is a really important part of that. As I've gone through my why do I do this role as the Rock Showman, I've come up with the line, and this is where I am at the moment: fossils are the past, earth science is the future. Actually, by giving people that fascination of a fossil, you're giving them an understanding of the interconnectedness of our planet and the importance of our planet, so that we can understand the processes that are going on and how that's going to affect the future, not just of the world and the environment, but actually what are the decisions that I'm going to need to make, or that you're going to need to make, to be able to face the changes that the future is going to bring, and it will bring them. Science can tell us that. So it starts with this connection with the earth. And what is a connection with the earth? It's a connection with a piece of rock that you found on a beach, and the stories that can reveal about the past.
Yeah. I mean, I was always taught that the key to the future is actually written in the past. Let's move on. What's the best fossil you've ever found?
Oh, that's a tough.
Or your favourite fossil you've ever found? Your favourite fossil you've ever found? Maybe not your best fossil, but maybe the most interesting fossil you've ever found.
All right. I mean, it's a funny one that I'm always asked that from the kids, and it's like, well, I can tell you, but what's?
So I'm asking it for the kids. What
does
is
it mean to you? So what I did is I actually brought my favourite fossil that I have found myself. But I'm actually going to give you a couple of steps leading up to that fossil.
Okay.
I think that's the better way of doing it, because it's quite a unique one. Okay. Now, of course, you will recognise this here. Let's put it on the camera there. Right, that. This is a classic from the northeast of England.
Yes.
It is a fossil coral. It is
not only just a fossil coral, but it's actually a rugose coral, a solitary coral that wasn't in a colony. It was actually singular, growing in the ground. In the sea. And it's been preserved in this white colour.
This white colour, this calcite in dark limestone, which is a chosen building material, particularly in ornamental stone around, well, it's from County Durham, it's from Weardale, and it's called the Frostley marble. It's not a marble, but we don't need to cover that here. It is a fossil.
It's very decorative when polished up. Well, here you go. Look, this is more of the colonial coral now.
Same age, similar place. You find this all across the northeast of England.
Look at those.
In fact,
all the little white specks there are actually the coral heads themselves,
which makes for a riveting podcast for those of you who are listening online. So
yes.
let's get into the development of the fact that was indeed a coral. So this coral forms big bands within the rock, particularly in the limestone, in the coal measures up in the north of England. And a little progression of the story of that fossil is what happens between the limestone and the calcite when it is exposed to acidic water, such as acid rain. So here's a sample here that I now hold out.
Yeah, so that's one of the corals that's then been acid etched by the waters and left the calcite behind, but actually melted away all the limestone in between the fossils. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So you're seeing the fossils standing out from the rock, and that's just acid rain. Most rain is actually acidic, and limestone is susceptible to a chemical abrasion from that, or dissolution from that. So this will happen naturally. This will happen on the surface of the Earth, but it also happens below the surface. When groundwaters percolate through limestone, it will eat away at the limestone and sometimes leaves the fossils more exposed. Now, the example that I'm going to show you is actually a beautiful fossil specimen, but also a beautiful mineral specimen. And that is quite a rare combination.
And this is your favourite fossil?
This is my favourite fossil. This is the long story of how we get to here. I'm going to show you this side first, and you will...
Look at that. Look. So these are calcite crystals on that side?
Exactly. This is calcite in the form known as nailhead spar. Spar means crystal. But once I turn it around this side, you may just be able to see.
Just about make out. So there's a what's called a horn coral. That's what it's called, a horn coral, which is the shape of a horn, but it's a singular coral, a rugose coral. So a singular coral that's then got the calcite crystals around the actual specimen. So how does that form, Steve?
Well, firstly, it's incredibly rare for this to form. What's happened is this was once upon a time fully enclosed in the limestone. Then, deep underground, it was actually chemically eroded from the limestone so that it was left just as a pure fossil in a void, in a cave deep underground.
Yeah.
Then the final bit, which is the really strange bit for it to happen, is hot volcanic water actually seeped into this cavity, and that volcanic water held a lot of dissolved calcite within it. As that hot water cooled down slowly over many, probably hundreds of thousands of years, cooled, and the minerals, the crystals precipitated. They grew from the solution. So the fossil itself has provided the nucleation points for the crystals to grow upon, a little bit like pearls will form around a grain of sand.
Yes.
Here, the crystals have formed around the fossil itself.
And I think, I will try and do my joke now about the specimen. Now, technically, in geological terms, it's called a floater.
It is indeed a floater.
The only other floater I know of is in the loo, but this is a geological floater.
Well, see, that would be a number 2 specimen, but this is my number 1 specimen.
Very good, very good.
So I love
So
again.
It's basically caused by it being eroded out into a cavity first, and then the solutional waters have come into that crack, through the cracks in the rock, into that cavity, and floated it. And then the solutional water within that cavity has got such a high concentration of calcite that then the crystals have started forming around the actual floating fossil within that cavity.
Yeah, and it really makes this piece a real freak. That's not a normal combination of things to happen. It's quite rare.
I believe as well that the reason why you get the 2 stages as well is probably because of some kind of environmental change. Is that right?
I would imagine so. It's certainly there's certainly a fluid change there. That the initial fluid had a dissolving power, and the secondary fluid has a precipitation power. So that could be chemistry of the water. There may have been also a tectonic change where things were moving up and down. And it's also possible that these calcites actually formed much, much later than the rest of the mineralization
Yes.
in this ore field as well.
Yes.
This could be much
Well,
more
I think you
recent.
sometimes see that in certain mineral specimens, particularly in say in Brazil. You sometimes get in Brazil you get the classic amethyst, the purple amethyst you see in most rock shops. But occasionally you'll see the cavities. These are formed within cavities. These geodes formed in like effectively gas bubbles within lava. But also you find it that occasionally you'll have this secondary growth on top of the amethyst, which is sometimes calcite, and that does indicate that there was the right conditions for the amethyst to grow, but then obviously then a secondary growth and a different environment for the calcite to grow.
So, yes. And in this ore field, I'll go a little bit more into this story here. So this is the North Pennine ore field. All of this heat and chemistry is coming from deep volcanic heat that was around about 270 million years ago, where the volcano was actually putting this heat up, making these minerals in this ore field. And this could be a remnant of that heat, which might go all the way up until the modern era. I don't know the age of that calcite; it's never been tested there.
Yeah, and you particularly found that specimen yourself as well.
Exactly. Again, so that's why this is important to me. It's not something I've bought; it's something I've found.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the best fossils are the ones you find yourself.
Well, they've got a personal attachment to me. You've got the personal attachment to them. And interestingly, and this is often the case, I didn't realize that I'd found that when I'd found that.
So you thought you found just the crystals?
Exactly. I was pulling
Yeah.
things like this out of that big cavity. It was a cavity big enough that I could fit my whole body into. And I was pulling out these beautiful nailhead spars and reached in, put that one in my bag, took it home, thinking it was just another little multi-specimen, cleaned it off with a toothbrush, and would you look at that? And at that
Yeah.
point, I was really happy. I've coveted finding something like that, but never thought I actually would. So
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
happy.
And I think that's important. I mean, most of the fossils you do find have got some kind of story behind them. I mean, I remember once out collecting and I found a fossil nautilus on the beach. What was interesting was I was waiting for the tide to go out, and it was at least another half an hour for it to go out, and I saw a fox on the beach. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Watching the fox go up and down the beach, and it went all the way up to a waterfall and was there for a long time, maybe 20, 30 minutes. By that time, it then scurried off round the corner, and the tide had gone out far enough for it to scurry around the corner. So I thought, well, it's time. If it can get round the corner, the tide's out far enough, I can go as well and have a look at the beach. But I was interested in seeing what it was looking at up at the waterfall. And when I got up there, there was, honestly, no lie, there was a fossil nautilus at the bottom of the waterfall. I still have that fossil nautilus to the day because of that story. It's not the best looking thing, but it is because of the story. And I think that's sometimes a fascination with what you do for a living. You're telling stories with the fossils. You're telling stories to children, may it be volcanic rocks, may it be meteorites, may it be fossils. You're telling stories to get them interested into science.
I trying to do that, and trying to do that in ways that hopefully integrate more dynamism than just the stories of rocks, and integrating circus tricks and YouTube and content, which is going to tick a few more of their boxes.
Yeah.
As an enjoyable experience. I've just got to ask you though,
Okay.
where is that waterfall?
The waterfall is at Saltwick.
You know, the best answer you could have possibly given me is where the fox at.
Oh, very good, very good, very good, very good, very good. Yes, I'm not that quick. Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here's a question for you, and we all know the answers. We both know the answers, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Have you got any advice for any beginners?
Take your passion and spend a lot of time with it. Read the books, do the time on the beach, wherever it is. Get to know your places, get to know them on good days, get to know them on bad days. Expect there to be more bad days than good days, and enjoy the fact that you get to do what you're doing, and enjoy doing what you do.
Great, brilliant. So we're going to do the quick fire round. Okay. Quick fire round. So here we go. Okay. Just for the clickbait, just for the clickbait. What's the best fossil you've ever seen?
Eric the pliosaur.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nice one. And where's that based at the minute?
I believe it's in the National Museum or the Sydney Museum. The National Museum in Sydney? Australian Natural Museum?
Yeah.
National Museum?
Yeah. Okay. Your favourite fossil hunting location? And really, I really ought to have thought about this a bit more, really, because I should have put favourite fossil hunting location outside of Yorkshire. That's what I should have put. But no, we'll go back to the beginning. Fossil hunting location.
Traditionally, for me, that's been Kettleness on the Yorkshire coast.
Of course. No, to be fair, that is one of my favourites as well. It's a beautiful location, just south of Brunswick Bay. For those of you that don't know that area, it's just north of Whitby as well. Okay. The best museum you've ever visited? And there's a lot out there to choose from.
I've got to go with the Natural History Museum.
Good lad.
It's an easy answer because it's such a good collection.
It's such an iconic building, such an iconic history. I was there in January, February time. Just a fantastic place. And everybody wants to know this. Anytime I do any work with kids, they always want to know, what's your favourite dinosaur?
The Muttaburrasaurus.
Very good. And why is that? Why that one?
Well, the Muttaburrasaurus is an Australian herbivore, and when I grew up, we didn't really know anything about Australian dinosaurs.
No.
In fact,
no. Still very few of them still found.
Still very few of them found. We know a lot more. We are in the golden age of dinosaurs, and that is true in Australia as much as anywhere else. So the Muttaburrasaurus was the first, one of the first dinosaur skeletons that was found in the town of Muttaburra, hence the name the Muttaburrasaurus.
Do you know what mine is?
Go on.
Well, it has to be Byronosaurus.
Well, fair enough.
It's not named after me, but it has to be that one, hasn't it?
Was it named after the poet?
I'm not sure what it was named after. No, I think it was named after the finder. I think it was in America, and his surname was Byron, I believe. But somebody in the comments could probably tell me otherwise. I'm sure there would be, wouldn't they? And here we go. What's the biggest fossil you've ever found?
That is such a question that I so regularly get asked. You've
Yes,
been asked that question, haven't you?
Asked all the time.
Oh,
It's not always the size that matters.
It's the quality of the wood in the case here, because it's a tree. A tree is the biggest fossil I've found. Would have to be a good old fashioned tree, and there's a massive tree trunk on one of my guided tour locations, which I wasn't shown it. I discovered it. Sure, lots of other people have found it.
Yeah.
But down in Celtic Bay, there is a good 4-metre section of tree buried under a gigantic concretionary nodule.
Wow.
And so that's the biggest fossil I have ever found.
That's great. I think that'll do for now. And thanks a lot again for coming on the podcast, Steve. It's been wonderful as always. We always have a giggle and a laugh when we're together, I know. Mainly at my expense, probably. But thanks again for coming on the podcast. One last thing. Where can people find you?
Where can you find me? You can follow me online if you do that kind of thing at the Rock Showman. And I tend to hang out a lot of time on the Yorkshire coast, where I get to run tours as part of the Fossils UK team. And I'm often at fossil festivals and geology events across the country. And social media is a good place where you can find out where I'm going to be next. So come and say g'day and share some questions, share some stories, and most of all, share some fun dementals of fossils.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much,
subscribe.
Steve.
You know what to
Thanks
do.
very much. And thanks very much, Stephen. Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, do all that kind of thing. It really helps us get more people coming over onto the show. Obviously, Steve's now been my guinea pig for one of my first ever episodes. We're hoping to get quite a few other people in. I've got quite a good list of people that I'm going to approach, and a few of them have already said they would be interested. So I think it would be quite interesting to do. So please do follow us and look out for the episodes coming up. Also, check out our latest fossil sales on our website. We've got fossil hunting tours coming up at All that can be found at fossilsuk.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.